Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 2438B, and today's date is March 28th, 2021, and the title of the episode is Crimes Against Children Unite All Humanity. A deep, dark world is being exposed. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, Trump and the Patriots, they are exposing this deep, dark world of the deep state, the mainstream media, the corrupt politicians. Remember, everything that Biden is doing, everything the deep state is doing, it can be reversed. Trump knows this. He knows he can build the economy up. He knows he can reverse what they're doing. The whole point of this is to expose everything to the people, because the only way the people can understand or see the truth is through showing them exactly what is happening. And if you notice, each day, something new comes out. Something that upsets another person. It might be the border. It might be giving the children to caregivers without doing any type of checks. Those children coming over the border, people might get angry about that, of course. It might be that Biden is working on a vaccine passport, and if you don't have the vaccine, you can't travel. Yes, people are going to be getting upset about that. This is about bringing the people to the precipice, bringing them to the edge where they demand change. And each person reaches that precipice point at different times. But you need to see it all. And if you look at what Trump and the Patriots have been doing, they've been very, very strategic in planning this out. Now, when you look back at the Q posts and you start to compare it to what's happening right now, you can see that this was part of the plan. A lot of the things that we've talked about in the past, they're happening right now. And I do believe this is on purpose. I'm talking about voter ID, election fraud, crimes against children, you name it. We're going to be talking about it a little bit later. But first, let's start off with resignations. We're seeing a lot of individuals resign, Les Wexner and others. And now we have Armenian Prime Minister. He announced his resignation. Now, this follows his loss in 2020's war with Azerbaijan. And we're starting to see a lot of individuals resign. Is this a coincidence? No. There's a reason for this. Now, Trump, the Patriots, they've been setting everything up and preparing everything after Biden, after Kamala Harris, after everything is exposed. And I do believe Trump now is building his base. Yes, he's using this time. And remember, optics are very important. It can't look like Trump is doing this because he lost the election. It can't look like it's a political hit. Trump, and when we observe what he does here, he likes everything to happen naturally. That where he's not involved, maybe he's a little bit involved, but it's not him just coming out and pointing the finger saying, hey, you cheated and here's the proof. What would the mainstream media do? What would the deep state do? Instead, he likes to sneak it up behind the scenes, and then all of a sudden it hits them and there's nothing they can do about it. Think about all the legislation that's being passed now in the different states, voter ID and other laws. We were told about this a long time ago. The way it's being done now, there's nothing the mainstream media can do about it. They can't even blame it on Trump. There's nothing the corrupt politicians can do about it. They can't blame it on Trump. But it's all being put into place. And then we have Trump's White House policy advisor, or former White House policy advisor, Stephen Miller. He is preparing to launch a new legal group to fight Biden's agenda in the court system, taking a page from the book of the ACLU and other left-wing advocacy groups that coordinated with Democrats to try and block Trump's platform during his time in office. So they're setting that up. Trump he's endorsing very specific candidates. There are other individuals that have been in the public office for a very long time that are no longer seeking re-election. Do you see what's happening here? Do you think Trump is just going after the House? Do you think he's just going after the Senate? Do you think he's just going after the presidency? No, he's going after it all. He's going to expose it all, and he's going after it all to bring down the entire system. But he needs to expose everyone to the system so they understand what it is and put things into place where it doesn't look like he's doing it because he's a sore loser, because he lost the election. Well, we know Biden cheated. We know there was election fraud. We all know this. But what would the mainstream media, what would the deep state do? They would go after him. So he came up with a plan. And think about what he's doing now. He's exposing each part of the deep state, of the D's, of the mainstream media's plan. You have the border. You have the economy, helicopter money. You have the vaccine passports and much, much more. He's exposing all of it so people can see. And it doesn't happen within a day. You expose it over time and you get people angry. Actually, you bring them to the precipice of destruction. And this is exactly what we're watching. Now, most of us who've been looking at this for a very long time, we might have reached the precipice already. I think a lot of us already have. But those people who might have voted for Trump, but don't know much about anything, haven't really been following anything. They just like his policies. They like that the economy was doing well. They liked that it was America first. They liked that he was in control. But they might have not known the inner workings. Now they're starting to see all of this. And information is continually coming out, like with Hunter Biden. Think about it, just in the news. I mean, Joe Biden, he's the president. He can't even keep Hunter Biden's information from coming out. It's continually coming out, especially with the gun, the Secret Service, how the Secret Service covered for him, how he lied on the form to get the gun. And what else has Hunter Biden done? Well, we've known that he's worked with Ukraine. He's worked with China. Joe Biden has received a lot of money. And we know that Hunter engaged in corrupt financial deals with some of the world's most dangerous people. He's also immersed in drugs, alcohol, and much more. And we have text messages. We have his laptop. Where do you think all of this is? What do you think is happening right now with all of this? This is one gigantic setup. Now, if we go down to the border, Trump, he's been playing this up quite a bit. And now he's saying that the Border Patrol, they want him to come down there. Remember, the Border Patrol loved what Trump did. They saw him taking charge. Now they see a complete and utter mess. So if you go to the border, what are you seeing? Well, there's videos out there of a semi-trailer of illegal aliens unloading in Pearsall, Texas. It was captured on video. And there were just hundreds of them coming out of the truck. We also had Ted Cruz. He went down to the border and he filmed what was going on there, where everyone was packed in small little areas. We also come to find out that the Border Patrol, they have estimated about 861 criminals were caught crossing the U.S. Rio Grande border, including 63 gang members, 92 sex offenders and murderers. And these are the people that they caught. Think about the rest. And you can see that Biden, his administration, where they continually talk about transparency. If you're truly transparent, you don't have to talk about transparency. You don't have to tell people you're going to be transparent. It's almost like saying, well, I'm going to be truthful and I tell the truth. Well, if you tell the truth, you don't have to tell people that. If you're transparent, You don't have to tell people you're going to be transparent. You would just automatically be transparent, and you would allow all the reporters down there to see everything. And if you notice, all they continually say is, we're going to be as transparent as possible, which means, and let's translate this, we're not going to be transparent. We're only going to show you what we want you to show you, and everything else is off limits. But it's already out there, just like we saw with the riots, with the BLM protest riots during the pandemic. Yes, they tried to hide everything, and people saw it, people questioned it, and they finally had to admit to it. And when you look at these pictures, you can see that all these people are packed into small little areas. And Dan Scavino, he put this out. What the current administration doesn't want you, the American people, to see. And this is a video of Ted Cruz when he was down there showing what it looks like. Now, Senator James Lankford, he was down there and he said, okay, and this is what he tweeted out. He said, here's a side-by-side comparison. The first photo is from my trip to the border in 2019. The second is from today. Plenty of space to walk around and safely spread out. Tell me this isn't a crisis. And he shows one picture, and it actually looks like potatoes on an oven sheet, and you're ready to cook them. And then you have Trump's picture where kids are sitting on the bench watching TV, and there's plenty of space, and it doesn't look like it's a crisis. And now, if you notice what Trump is doing, it's what they did to him during the border surge. They kept saying, oh, he kept people in cages. He ripped them away from their parents. Well, he didn't know, and the Border Patrol didn't know who the parents were. Because remember, there's human trafficking. There's smugglers. There's a lot more going on. And now it's the opposite. Biden is trying to hide everything. They're packing them in where, like in one facility, there's only supposed to be 70-something people, and there's like 700. This is a major, major crisis. And this is during a pandemic. Trump, when he had the surge, it wasn't during a pandemic. So this is 10 times worse. Actually, Brandon Judd, the current president of the National Border Patrol Council, he was out there saying that this is an awful, awful situation. He said, Trump saw a 45-year low in human smuggling at the border. Now it's all back. People are noticing. People are realizing what's really going on now. And now the Biden administration, he's taking this to the next level. What have they done? Well, the Biden administration is not requiring the FBI to fingerprint background checks of caregivers at its rapidly expanding network of emergency sites. Now think about that for a second. They're just giving the children away to anybody? Who could these people be? Are there going to be pedos? Other child trafficking individuals? How do they know? And right now, this is alarming child welfare experts who say the waiver compromises safety as thousands of unaccompanied child migrants cross the border. Now, let's think about this for a second. We've been told about crimes against children. Is this going to be a crime against children? Of course it is. Are people going to see this? Yes, they are. Let's go back to post 4,908. This is October 21st, 2020, right before the election. And there's a picture of everyone looking at the sun coming up, and it says the Great Awakening. Down below, it says, sometimes you can't tell the public the truth. You must show them. Only then will people find the will to change. Now, this is the line I'm talking about. Crimes against children unite all humanity, cross party lines. Difficult truths. Now, what happens when the news comes out that these children were given to a pedo ring, to child traffickers, and Biden, his administration, endangered their lives? What does the mainstream media do with this? What do the people of the country do with this? And let's expand on this. if there's hundreds and hundreds of children, remember, Biden, he did a press conference. The children are coming up because he's a nice guy. So we have thousands upon thousands of children in this country. And thousands upon thousands are given to people where there's no background check. Do you think the country will unite over this? Do you think this is just the first stage of all of this? I do believe so. And I do believe people are going to start to really question everything. Actually, they're already starting to question all of this because now ABC and other mainstream media outlets, they're doing polls. And I really don't like polls because they skew it. But what we're starting to see is that the people, and I think this is a little difficult to skew at this point. They can try, but we're seeing that the people, they're not agreeing with Biden's policies. We'll be talking about that because it goes into something completely different. But what we're seeing with all of this is that this is the beginning stage. And Trump, he's bringing the people to a certain area where they say no. And especially when it has to do with children, doesn't matter if you're Democrat, doesn't matter if you're Republican, doesn't matter if you're independent, doesn't matter what race, origin you are. People say, no, this is not a good idea. What person's going to say, you know what? The child, just go ahead and give it to anyone and we don't need to check the background of this individual who's coming to get them. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't. And people are going to call him out on this because you know why? This is going to unite the people. Democrat, Republican, makes no difference. Now, what's very interesting is that we're seeing a lot of false flags because they're trying to push the gun control bill. And we know there were a lot of people out there after this last shooting where they said, oh, this white guy was shooting up everyone. And it turned out it wasn't a white guy. And they started to take down their tweets. And it seems that this individual from USA Today, the race and inclusion editor, tweeted this out. It's always an angry white man. Always. Now, that was March 22nd, 21. Now, she's the race and inclusion editor. Well, she was just fired because of this. Actually, if you really listen to what these people say, they're racist. I mean, when you start to talk about certain races, like she did here, it's always an angry white man, you are becoming a racist. And once again, people are now seeing this. When you tell people only buy from this race, that's racist. That's segregating. Because you're pointing out one race. Again, if you go into a store, if you're watching a movie or anything like that, you watch a movie or you listen to a song because it's good. You buy a product because it's well made. It doesn't matter if it was created by someone of color, someone who was white, someone who was Asian. It makes no difference if they make a quality product. Once you start to separate all of this, once you segregate it, and we've seen this in the past, you become a racist. And that's what is being shown to the world. And more people are starting to notice this. Now, it seems that we're getting confirmation that Biden, he's going to be moving forward with some type of gun control executive order. Now, the Second Amendment says the following shall not be infringed upon. This is an infringement. Actually, all the gun laws are an infringement on the Second Amendment because there's no law above the Second Amendment. Now, what's very interesting is that since he's putting this out there and his son lied on a registration form, will his son be held accountable? Remember, he broke a law. He lied on the form. Is anyone going to press charges? Most likely not. But we also see that the Federal Appeals Court in Ohio ruled that Trump's ban on bump stocks is unconstitutional and should no longer be enforced by the Bureau of Alcoholic Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Now, did Trump do this on purpose? Remember, everything that we're watching, everything that we're witnessing right now, Just because something didn't happen at that moment doesn't mean it wasn't done on purpose for later on. Remember, we were told about voter ID a long time ago. What are states doing now? They're passing voter ID laws. What is Biden, the mainstream media, doing? They're telling everyone how it's racist, how this shouldn't be done. It's going to keep people from voting. Weren't we told all this? Yes, we were told a while ago. Actually, weren't we told there was going to be an investigation against Cuomo, Whitmer, and the rest? Well, aren't we seeing that today? Yes. So Trump, he went ahead and he banned the bump stock. And now it's unconstitutional. And Trump did this with an executive order. Biden is planning to write what? An executive order for gun control. Well, isn't there a precedent already that the bump stocks, they were unconstitutional? So whatever Biden does, that is unconstitutional. Actually, you don't even need the courts to tell you this. All you have to do is read the Second Amendment. And that tells you everything you need to know. I think the Founding Fathers made it pretty darn clear that the Second Amendment shall not be infringed upon. I don't know how they can make it any clearer than that. But it seems that Trump most likely did this on purpose. And if you notice, they found this unconstitutional, and this is separate and apart from a weapon. It's something that you would add on to it. So if Biden goes out and he tries to write an executive order to ban the magazines or ammunition, remember the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. Arms is weapons, ammunition, it's all of it. So right there, it's completely unconstitutional. Now, what's very interesting is with this pandemic, we're starting to see everything start to disappear. States open up, and we know that they're pushing for a vaccine passport. But in Arizona, Governor Ducey, he lifted the mask mandate, reopens bars without restrictions. Out in Florida, the bars, the restaurants, they are completely packed. And in New York, what are they doing? They're setting up their vaccine passport so people can re-enter society. And yes, Biden is going to take this, and he's going to try to do this for the country, which I do believe this is completely unconstitutional. And they're also trying to make some type of blockchain-powered COVID-19 passport in New York. Now, we knew this was coming. Remember, this is all part of the deep state, the invisible enemy, the central bankers' plan. This is part of the Great Reset. They wanted to do this for a very long time. They want complete and utter control. And the vaccine passport, that's just the beginning. They always start out this way, and they continually remove your rights. Think about what has happened since 9/11. Think about all the rights that they have taken away at the airports, sporting events. If you go back in time, would you ever let anyone look through your bag without a search warrant? Now people are completely open to it. Okay, here, open up my suitcase, look through everything. That goes against the Constitution right there. They have no right to do this. This is why the Founding Fathers put this in there. Now, they're going to make you put something into your body against your will if you don't want it. Think about what they're doing here. Corporations are going to tell you what you need to put in your body to enter their business. This is just the beginning of what they're trying to do. Now, does this mean they're going to succeed in all of this? No, I think they're going to get a backlash from the people. And remember, a lot of this stuff can be completely removed. And I think Trump and the Patriots, they know that this can be completely removed. Because I'm pretty sure that Biden's going to push this through with what? An executive order. And once again, just like Biden, Trump can just come right in and remove it all. And think about this for a second. We have New York right now pushing this vaccine passport. Biden, his administration, they want to implement a vaccine passport. But the illegals coming into the country, you know, they can just fly anywhere. without ID, without anything, without going through everything that the everyday American has to go through. Right there, that should tell you everything you need to know. And yes, this is another thing that's going to piss people off, that's going to bring them to the precipice of destruction. Now, what's very interesting, when Texas went ahead and said, listen, we're going to lift the mask mandate, all the experts out there were saying, well, we're going to see a spike in 2 weeks. This is going to be a complete and utter disaster in Texas. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, in Florida, you're not seeing it whatsoever. Actually, people are enjoying themselves. And if this was truly a pandemic where everyone was sick, you would see people dropping dead all over the place. Remember all those ventilators that Trump created? What happened to them? Did they even use them? No. Actually, with all the homeless people that you see in these big cities, you would have bodies lined up on the street because they have compromised immune systems. If this was truly a pandemic. Actually, go back to the beginning. Did you see bodies on the streets? Were the homeless being picked up with dump trucks? Go to California. They have about 160,000 people living in tents. Did the dump trucks come by and haul them away? No, they're still there. This pandemic was created with a PCR test that went out to 40 cycles. It was fake. It was created with the mainstream media that created fear. And out in Texas, actually the cases dropped when they got rid of the masks. It wasn't because of masks. Masks don't work. This has to do with the PCR test. They took it and they said, no longer are we going to do 40 cycles. Now we're going to do less, which means you're going to see less cases. And each time they drop it, you're going to see less and less and less. That's it. Actually, if you look at the numbers, and Fox News put this out, this is from We the Media, it says flu cases plummet during pandemic. So in 2020 to 2021, flu season is 1,822. But from 2019 to 2020, the flu season was 38 million. What do you think they did here with COVID-19? That's right. Everyone's walking around with the flu. That's all it is. You have the flu. All they did was move the numbers. And they used the flu numbers to build this up. The PCR test, and actually the creator of the PCR test said, this test was never meant to be used for COVID-19. And they brought it out to 40 cycles because they wanted to pick up the dead RNA, which means you can't spread it. So all these tests and everything they were doing was fake, phony, and false. It's the same thing with defunding the police. When they said, oh, we have to defund the police in certain cities like Los Angeles, Seattle, they started to defund the police. And what happened? They said, well, when we defund the police, we can have social workers and we can have other people come in and we'll go ahead and we'll guard our own streets. We don't need the police to do this. So what are these cities seeing? They're seeing crime surge. And now Los Angeles, they're going to increase police funding to $36 million. Why? Because there's large spikes of crime happening right now after they defunded the police. This isn't rocket science. It's common sense. And now people are seeing the truth. Defunding the police, that wasn't the answer. It was never the answer. It was an agenda. And they were trying to push an agenda. And it's failing. And you know what else is failing? This entire election fraud is failing. Remember, Q has told us 2020 plus is going to be safeguarded. Trump, it never had to look like he was the one involved in doing this. If he came out and said there was election fraud, here's the evidence, just like hydroxychloroquine, what do you think the mainstream media and the social media platforms were going to do? Well, they were doing it. They were censoring. Look what they did with hydroxychloroquine. He knew this. So this is why Q told us after the 2020 elections. And what do we see happening? We're seeing states now change the laws. Now, out in Michigan, the Michigan GOP is going to be able to make changes to Michigan's election integrity laws without needing the approval from Michigan's Dem governor, Whitmer. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to make it veto-proof. They're going to circumvent Governor Whitmer. And right now, there are 39 bills proposed in the GOP that would require identification for new voters, prohibit prepaid absentee envelopes, limit the number of absentee drop boxes, and bar the Secretary of State from sending an absentee ballot unless requested. This is not just this state. We see it in Georgia. We see it in Wisconsin. We see it all over. And guess what? The mainstream media, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, they're angry about this. Actually, Trump did this in a way where they never expected this to happen. He outsmarted them. This is coming from CNN. How the Supreme Court laid the path for Georgia's new election law. Now think about this. Trump went all the way up to the Supreme Court. He followed the rule of law, and he's still following the rule of law. And he knew that the states, the legislatures, after all this was said and done, because I do believe this was planned, they would go ahead and change the laws. The deep state, the corrupt politicians, never expected this to happen, and they're calling it racist. If we go back to post 2690 and you look down this post, it tells you everything that is going on right now. The mainstream media and the Ds, they're talking about how voter ID suppresses the minority vote. We saw this in this post. I'll read a couple of lines. It's very long. Why do Ds push no voter ID in U.S. elections? Why do Ds push for open borders? Find the connection. Sometimes a map helps. What Supreme Court decision 63 ruled voter ID did not suppress votes or deter minorities? What false narratives is pushed by Ds voter ID law? Racist? Voter suppression of minority vote? When is an ID required? Well, it's required for almost everything else. Purchase of alcohol, food stamps, welfare, Medicaid, Social Security, job, mortgage, unemployment insurance. You name it. You have to supply an ID. Why not to vote for the president of the United States? But this is what the Ds and the mainstream media are talking about right now. How it's going to suppress minority vote. And if you go to post 3,556, this is July 30th, 2019, it says, prepare for voter ID equals voter suppression of minority vote. Q told us in the past what they were going to do now, and we're starting to see it. Now, Praying Medic on Gab put this out there. The irony in SCOTUS' decision not to hear election cases is that it forced states to make changes to their election laws that should have been made years ago. Boom. And you can see now the organizations. Remember, we talked about this is infiltration from within. It's not just DC. It's Hollywood. It's Major League Baseball. It's NFL. It's much, much more. Colleges, schools. And now the Major League Baseball Association, they're saying that they're concerned over the restrictive new election law enacted in Georgia this week, which could strip the 2021 All-Star Game from Atlanta. So, again, they're pushing the agenda of the deep state. Why should they be getting involved in election laws? That's not up to them. They're a baseball organization. And now they're making decisions on what certain states are doing. But this was told to us a long time ago. This is post 2855, February 21st, 2019. It says, welcome to the Democratic Party. They will stop at nothing to regain power. Time to adopt voter ID law. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're experiencing everything that Q told us in the past. Actually, if you start to look at the Q post right now, the plan is happening right now. Yes, there were certain things that happened in the past. There are certain things that are happening in the future right now that refers to the past. And look what Trump and the Patriots have done. They thought Trump was going to take a different tactic. They thought he was going to produce election fraud. They thought he was going to go to the Supreme Court and try to push an agenda. They thought he was going to attack, and this is why they erected fences and brought in the National Guard. But Trump, what did he do? he was very stealth. He just had the states do what they should be doing. And now there are laws on the books in the swing states. Now, what does the deep state do? They're kind of stuck. Now, 𝐗𝟐🐐 he put out a video, and this is on Instagram, and it shows a crystal growing inside a round glass globe. And what does this look like? Well, 𝐗𝟐🐐 says the following. This reminds me of a view of the world and all the people slowly waking up, and they are ice crystals. And awakened individuals completely covering the planet all over. And actually, that's what it reminds me of too, where it started out with a few little crystals and it started to grow and grow and grow, and people see the truth. Now, Trump, he came out over the weekend and he put out a statement, and it said the following. Where's Durham? Is he a living, breathing human being? Will there ever be a Durham report? Now, why would he just all of a sudden mention this? Why would he mention Durham? Well, if we understand what Trump likes to do when he pushes a certain agenda and he puts information out there, he wants to see what the deep state will do. Does this mean that Durham is coming out with all the evidence tomorrow? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think so, not yet. But he wants to see how they're going to react, just like with the elections. He wanted to see how they were going to react. He had them going in one direction while he was doing something in a completely different direction. And I want to go back to post 4,486 because Trump just mentioned Durham, and this post says the following. It must be right. It must be according to the law. It must be proven. It's what you don't see. Durham is not the only game in town. Yes, I think he has them focusing on Durham, but I think something else is happening in the background. Something that's going to pop out and surprise them. Just like the states pushing the voter ID laws. Now, let me go back to post 4,773. It says, what if there's another prosecutor outside of D.C. assigned by Sessions with the same mandate authority? Now, yes, we thought it was maybe Huber or other people. What happens if there's something else going on? I mean, think about when they were investigating Trump and they wanted his taxes. Were there other prosecutors in other places looking into Trump's business, investigating? Of course, they were going to find nothing. Yes, it was Vance in New York, and there were other prosecutors. What happens if there are other stealth prosecutors in other places? I do believe there's a lot more going on here than people think. I think the focus is on Durham, but I think we're going to see a lot more happen. And this brings me back to post 4,952. This was one of the last posts that Q made. It just says Durham. So Trump, I think he mentioned Durham because he wants their attention on Durham. Maybe he wants the trigger pulled. Who's the Attorney General? Merrick Garland. Do you think Merrick Garland will get involved now because Trump mentioned this? Could be. So let me go back to post 4,915. This is October 21st, 2020. It says, a deep, dark world is being exposed. The truth won't be for everyone. Have faith in humanity. And that's what's happening right now. Everything is being exposed. So if we go to post 4,940, this is October 22nd, 2020. It says, they can no longer hide in the shadows. Big tech, big media, D party being exposed for all to see. What is happening right now? We are seeing it all. Everything is being exposed. Now, people say, well, people aren't really waking up. People aren't really paying attention. Well, it seems, and we mentioned this in the beginning of the report, that there are mainstream media outlets now doing polls. And yes, Rasmussen's doing polls and others, and they're starting to match up. And ABC did a poll, and it says 60% of Americans disapprove of Biden's handling of the border crisis. 57% disapprove of Biden's gun control proposals. Remember, you don't need 100% of the people. Actually, 4 to 10% of the people, they're going to be lost forever. They probably will not wake up until the very, very end when someone has to explain it to them. But the people now, they're starting to wake up. They're starting to realize this is going to get a lot worse. So buckle up, because a lot more has to be exposed. And we're going to see a lot more happen. Remember, Trump came out. He was down in Texas, the Alamo, in front of the border wall, saying that the 25th Amendment has zero chance of removing him, but it's going to come back to hit Biden. Remember the tweet that Trump put out on October 9, 2020? It says, crazy Nancy Pelosi is looking at the 25th Amendment in order to replace Joe Biden with Kamala Harris. The Dems want that to happen fast because Sleepy Joe is out of it. Now that's telling you everything you need to know. And then we had Richard Grenell put up a picture of Biden on the stairwell up to Air Force One. He's holding on with his hand, and that's the only thing you can see. So if Trump is saying that he's going to be removed by the 25th Amendment, Grenell is telling you that he's barely hanging on now, and he's going to be removed. Now, something else happened, which is very interesting. In Australia, there was a cyber attack that hit the television channels, and the TV station went down. Email was taken offline, and they don't know if it was a foreign actor. They don't know if it was an inside job. Maybe it was a test to see if they have the ability to take the communication system down. And it seems the test was successful. Why do I say this? Well, as we can see, everything is starting to build up. Everything's being exposed. Trump mentioned Durham. The states are passing election laws. Trump is building the entire movement. Now, does the deep state, does the mainstream media, does the private Western Central Bank want anyone to see this when this really starts to come out? No. And this is why we know from post 4,587, it says, prepare for 0 day. Massive cyber power attacks attempts on 11/4. We don't know if that's the actual date or if that refers to the Department of Defense 11.4. Now, remember, the fences are coming down around D.C. And I do believe that Trump, he is waiting for the right moment to play the Trump card. Yes, he has the election fraud, but why play that hand right now? You want the laws to change. There was an event, a crisis that was created during the election. The legislature saw this and they went ahead and they did their job. Trump, he's waiting for the right moment. Remember, optics are very important. And I just want to read the line above this. Remember, C19, COVID-19, narrative kill date, election day plus one. Remember, he countered them with the vaccine. I know a lot of people don't like the vaccine. I don't think you need the vaccine for something that's curable, which has a 99.9x cure rate. You could take hydroxychloroquine. There's many other cures that you could take. Remember, this is the flu. And what we're seeing and what Trump is doing, he's building everything up. He wants them to get rid of COVID. He wants the election laws. He wants everything in place. He wants people who've been in government for a very long time not to run for re-election because you just can't fire them. He wants to endorse the people and have those people in. He wants the House, the Senate. He needs it all to move forward. And right now, Trump, what is he doing? He's cleaning house. He's putting everything into place. He knows he'll be able to rebuild all of this. He knows that he'll be able to reverse everything that Biden or Kamala Harris, the puppet masters, whatever they do, he knows he can reverse it. This is not about a 4-year election. This is about showing the people, being completely transparent and making them understand. And as this continues on, It's getting worse and worse for the mainstream media, for the deep state, for the private Western Central Bank, and Trump, the people, they are gaining strength like we've never seen before. The Patriots are in control. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.